JC Tickets provides first-class trips to Ravens road games, including airfare, 4-star hotels, game tickets, and cocktail parties. We also help provide great seating locations to all Ravens home games. JC Tickets, where the games begin. Visit us at jctickets.net.
Ravens Wrap is sponsored by Bud Light, jctickets.net, Geico Insurance, Dunaway Furniture, Ocean City Golf Club, RussellStreetReport.com, Comfort Inn Gold Coast, Holiday Inn Express, the original Green Turtle, hosted by the Blue Ox Bar and Grill.
And welcome back in. It's the original Green Turtles Ravens Wrap Show right here on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach online at WCBHRocks.com. Broadcasting from the Ravens Room in the Blue Ox 127th Street at Coastal Highway in Ocean City with Ravens News 44. Give yourselves a hand, everybody. There you go. As we recap the 20-17 win in overtime, the Ravens over the Bengals, and certainly helping themselves out in the AFC North. Guys, we talked about the defense a lot in the game on Sunday, and they certainly deserve a lot of credit. How about James Ahedebo, by the way? Now, if you remember, I believe going back to the Buffalo game, he had an interception that was called back.
Against Miami.
Or Miami. Okay, that was his first interception in his career, but it got called back. So not only does he get an interception, his first, he gets one, he gets two against Cincinnati. So he had a heck of a game. Of course, at the end, he goes from scapegoat to hero, though, and we can talk about that, guys, at the end of the game, the way that turned out with the tip pass. He said at the end, though, hey, look, if he had been maybe a foot further back, he would have been able to bat that down. He was a little probably too close into the scrum there, but he had a heck of a game. And I think it's just, Steve, it's instinct because you are taught to bat the ball down. He was just in a bad position where it turns out the ball went backwards.
I watched that 100 times. Yeah. He had a great game. He had 9 tackles, 2 interceptions. That ball, like you're saying, it's like me throwing a ball at your face. You put your hand up. Right. You've got to protect your face. If he had done nothing, it would have been caught. But your reaction is naturally to put your hand up. With ball hit his hand, and then there was a receiver. You got to give A.J. Green credit, drifting there. But I thought there were so many players. D'Angelo Tyson on the defense that you usually don't see. You look at Doomerville.
You're right. Tyson had a good game. Yeah.
And he's not a guy. And Nada, Nada has been absent for the last 4 games. He was moving the pile. And I really think the defense came out and they were up and they were going for the first half. And I think their second half they would have been going too. But the first pass when they came out, the tight end from Notre Dame came and tight walked the line.
Tyler Eifert.
Yeah. And they really came out firing in the second half. And you knew, hey, this might be a tale of 2 halves.
Tony, let me ask you real quickly, though. I don't think anyone's brought up the question, why was A.J. Green uncovered off the tip?
What? I think it's one of those things where when you go into that scrum and that jump ball situation, you have to have a guy on the back end who's waiting for that tip to knock it down if you're a defender and to catch it if you're on offense. And I think that was A.J. Green's role in there. He was waiting for the tip like that.
So
being as tall as he is, that puts him in a good advantageous situation. There you go. Yep. All right, so I gotta cut those things out. Anyway,
99% of the time, those things don't work, JJ. But boy, it did for them.
It's working right now.
What was the young guy's? What was your guy's name?
Ahedebo, the safety.
That guy. Yeah. The thing that I cannot stand when it comes to just network announcing, for me personally. They slowed it down in the slow motion. They kept showing it over and over. And the network announcers kept saying, what were you thinking? You've got to knock it down. That's easy to say in slow motion. Yeah. Just like you said, when the ball's coming at your face or anything, you're going to go like that. Like, it made me so mad for the casual football fan that maybe doesn't know much. Like, okay, well, you should have knocked it down. Anyone that actually knows football or anything, something is thrown at your face and just comes up. It was a complete mistake, and thankfully for the Ravens, for you guys ended up winning the game. But I was honestly mad for that young man and for the Ravens fans and players because he was getting a bad name for just doing something instinctual. I was ticked off at the TV.
It's a great point to be made. Absolutely great point. I mean, because and that's the same thing with the refs calls. Yeah, in slow-mo, we can say, hey, what were they looking at? What were they seeing?
2020.
Right, but it's a bang-bang situation there. And I thought there was an article about this, about Hedebo and taking more of a leadership role. And I thought they made a good point that Jimmy Smith, of all people, who, by the way, up until this year and maybe up until the last couple of games, was a first-round bust. He kind of got on Hedebo for making that mistake. But Hedebo calmly didn't say a word back, didn't cause any drama on the sideline, let Smith get it off his chest. And, some can perceive that as, he maybe shouldn't open his mouth. Others say, hey, he's a competitor, he wants to win, he was just disappointed. But Hedebo let him speak his word, and then you know what? That was it. And they went and played ball, and they played good defense, and they won in the overtime period.
I think I like both of those situations. I like the fact that Jimmy Smith got fired up, and I like the way Hedebo handled it.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, at the end of the day, really, the only thing that matters is how are those guys in the locker room, and they were fine.
Yeah.
He understood the nature of Jimmy Smith's frustration because he's a competitor. And Jimmy Smith obviously sees Hedebo as a leader and that sort of thing because he's addressing that with him on the sidelines. And after the game was over, you heard the comments that those guys were fine. And I think that that's a good situation. It's a good thing for that secondary. They're coming together as a unit, and this game was a perfect example of how they can play when they pull it together.
And if you really look at it, that took Hedebo to come up with the last tackle of the game. And you got to wonder, hey, if I didn't, pop the ball up in the air and get hazed by Smith, would I have been this passionate to come on and not only make the tackle, but then do the gravedigger dance, which was.
I love that. Dig, dig, dig.
He and the kicker both have some dances that I don't know really could be repeated at the Green Turtle or some of the fine places in Ocean
That's
City.
right. Hey, just a couple
Tucker's the number one gif right now on the internet with that little dance after he made the game-winning field goal.
That's right.
And don't look up what it actually means.
Just a couple of quick stats for you. Andy Dalton's run of 4 straight 300-yard games ended on Sunday. Also, the Ravens are 9-1 in November home games. That's going back to 2008 when John Harbaugh took over as head coach of the team. Guys, taking a look at this game, and again, whether win or lose, because I posted this on my personal Facebook page at halftime of the game, and it was far from over. But I said, win or lose, this was the kind of energy and passion I've been looking for from this team all year. And especially coming off a bye week in a key divisional game at Cleveland the week before. I hope that they can continue to parlay this into future weeks because that's the old kind of Ravens I'm used to seeing. This year, for the most part, guys, I have not seen that passion in the team, offense or defense, a sense of urgency, a sense of love for the game. And again, I'm not just equating that to losses, but just to wins and losses. I just haven't seen it this year.
Yeah, I think what the team has really lacked is an identity, and they started to develop that in this game. It looked, again, a lot like the 2003 through 2006 defense, and they were just swarming to the football, creating turnovers, and that's what we're used to and accustomed to as fans of the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that if they can continue that, Dean Pease needs to keep dialing it up, and maybe he's got the confidence now. And I think, as Steve pointed out earlier in the show, the fact that Ladarius Webb was blitzing a lot from that nickel position, I think that changed up a lot of things, and maybe he's finally healthy enough to be able to do that, whereas in the past he wasn't.
I think they came up fired up, but I also think when Marvin Lewis came out and went for it on 4th down, and he did that 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
That to me, if I'm a defensive player and you're going for it on 4th and 1, you're kidding yourself. I'm going to stuff you every single time you try to run up the middle, and they did. By and large, and that really helped them set the tone and get it going.
And I want to go back. It's Tony, right? We just met.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a point that Tony made a few moments ago. I think one of the biggest things, and it's a great point that he made, was after everything was happening between Smith and, how do you say his name?
Hedebo.
There it is. After everything that happened in the locker room, everything was good, right?
Yeah.
That goes back to what, Mike, you were saying at the beginning, back to Harbaugh. With everything we're seeing in the NFL now, with all that, with non-leadership, with in the locker room and the coaches and all that, one thing you've never had as a problem with the Ravens is in the locker room because of Harbaugh. And me as a fan, in the offseason with RG3 and everything you heard about with RG3 and Shanahan, it was the top story all the time on SportsCenter, over and over and over. You had 2 future Hall of Famers, one retire, Lewis, and one leave, and well, now he's not with anyone. Ed Reed, he leaves, and that wasn't anywhere because it was handled. You guys did a great job, and it all comes back to the coaching staff. And seriously, Tony, that was a great point. You didn't hear anything about the negativity in the locker room because there is none. you are going into the right part of the season, middle of November, with a great win and possibly some momentum.
I mean, think about it last year when they had the mutiny. I mean, you had that going on in the middle of the season, and Ed Reed was one of the leaders. And if the Ravens had come out and cut him like the Texans did this year, you don't go to the Super Bowl. You're right. They did, JJ, handle it very differently. And it's, that's why the NFL is so amazing. It's so interesting to watch because so many little things affect, the way the season goes. And just one wrong move can affect, the whole rest of your year.
And JJ brings up a good point, too, because one of the things the Ravens have been criticized about is not having that leadership in the locker room. And that's been overblown. Steve Bisciotti was sitting in this very chair talking about how it's been overblown. And I think they demonstrated on Sunday that they do have leaders in that locker room.
Right. And I think it's a good thing. And Bisciotti talked about the leadership being spread out and guys stepping up and it being not just on the defensive side, but the offensive side as well with leadership. Whether it's lead by example or it's vocally, I think that Terrell Suggs, at least as a team and maybe on the defensive side, has taken that role, but there are guys on the offensive side as well that have taken that, and it's a locker room that has not imploded. Even last year, though, when they had some issues, they talked it out, they worked it out. Harbaugh admitted to some mistakes, and they all worked it out, and that, you're right, that has not been a problem.
And think about this, Mike. Suppose Bernard Pollard and James Ahedebo switch spots on Sunday. Then what happens?
Yeah, might have been a little bit different there.
I still can't say his name.
To say the least.
You can call him
But
Dig.
I think Harbaugh is sort of
Dig.
Okay.
Harbaugh is sort of the model for what the modern coach is. I mean, back when we were growing up, and coaches didn't listen to players. I mean, that never happened. If you had a problem with the coach, you should. But now with all the social media and all that, if there's a problem with the coach, the fans know about it instantaneously.
But not with the Ravens. You don't see.
Yep.
You see nonstop. Even with my Skins, you see people tweeting and Facebooking and Instagramming pictures and all this stuff. You don't hear about that from the Ravens culture, if you will. It's not there. And that is a great problem to have. Not being on SportsCenter and every other news source for drama from off the field as opposed to what only matters Sunday for those 4 hours and 15 minutes on the field. It's a good problem to have.
It certainly dwindled from the last 10 years since, around Super Bowl time or right after that or the year before up until this point, no question about it. Guys, we're less than 60 seconds, but we talked a lot about the defense. I'll just say this offensively, with Joe Flacco in this game, it's not about stats, it's about winning the ball game, and you have to hand it to him. He made some key plays, especially outside the pocket. No one really gives him a lot of credit for being nimble or mobile, but he made some plays outside of the pocket, especially that first touchdown pass to Dallas Clark, shedding a tackler, getting outside, making a tight throw into a window to Dallas Clark. That was huge, but also making a great throw to Torrey Smith in the end zone. So the numbers might not be great, but he got the win and came up big when he needed to, and so that was pretty key. More of the Ravens Wrap Show to come on Comcast Beach TV and Delmarva's Rock Radio 93.5 The Beach.
What's this all about?
We're giving Rich the NFL experience of a goal line dive.
Really?
There's an easier way to get an ultimate NFL fan experience. Just snap the tag wherever Bud Light is sold and you could win. Bud Light in the NFL. Here we go.
Can I make it?
On the internet, yes. Into the end zone, no.
Come see us at Blue Off.
JC Tickets provides first-class trips to Ravens road games, including airfare, 4-star hotels, game tickets, and cocktail parties. We also help provide great seating locations to all Ravens home games. JC Tickets, where the games begin. Visit us at jctickets.net.